right, 1022, welcome back. So the Chicago Air and Water Show is one of the city's most exciting summer events, drawing huge crowds to watch amazing stunts in the sky and on the lake. But behind the thrilling performances is a lot of fascinating science and engineering that makes it possible. So to help us understand the technology and physics involved, which you can just imagine the questions that are about to come out, we're joined by John Llewellyn. He's the senior exhibit, not specialist, what are you? Strategist at the Museum of Science and Industry. Good morning. Thanks for coming in. I know you're probably slammed right now.
We are pretty slammed right now. We're doing all kinds of exhibit work, but we're most excited about our transportation gallery, all of our aircraft, and how that relates to the Chicago Air and Water Show.
I loved visiting MSI as a kid and going through all the it's like a old United Boeing,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah, we've got a Boeing United, a United Boeing 727 hanging from our balcony that you can walk through. You can look at the inside, how it works, all of the inner workings, and it's restored back to its original 1964 style because it was one of the first mass market airliners.
It blew my mind as a kid to go through there. You got to take the kids there,
kiddos.
and all the cool stuff hanging from the ceiling there, all the old planes and jets.
We have a lot of fun interpreting that stuff. We've got a couple old warbirds in there for you air show fans. We've got a Spitfire and a Stuka from World War II.
Whoa.
We've got a Curtiss JN-4D Jenny, which was one of the first airmail and barnstorming and air show planes. And we've got a Boeing 40B, another biplane from the 1920s. All kinds of really interesting stuff.
So do you know the ins and outs of all these different aircraft?
I know a little bit about them, yeah.
Yeah.
What excites you most about the Air and Water Show from a physics standpoint?
From a physics standpoint, it still kind of boggles my mind how these aircraft actually work, how they stay in the sky, how they stay together, how they do their amazing tricks. There's a lot of aerobatic flying and a lot of forces at play up there. And I've seen quite a few air shows. I've never gotten to ride along, but that's probably okay. You know, that would be a little rough. But all of the G-forces, the lift, the aerodynamics, the engineering, the material science, even the chemistry that goes into the fuels that propel these aircraft is really fascinating stuff.
Do you find that the pilots of these beautiful planes, do they find it, do you want me to switch? Okay. Oh no, is my mic not working? Sorry, let's turn this guy on. All right. Do you find that the pilots that come in town for these events, do they come and see your displays as well?
I don't have any particular recollection of any of them coming this year. I would welcome all pilots and everyone involved with the Air and Water Show, especially the spectators, to come on down and check us out at the Griffin MSI. We've got a lot of aircraft, planes, trains, automobiles, genetics, X-ray photography, tornadoes, all kinds of stuff.
And an unbelievable train set as well, I might add.
Wow.
I love that one too. John, we're listening to the Thunderbirds go by over the loop right now. It always amazes me, not only how fast they go, but how fast they can go and fly in formation. What is can you give us one or two factoids that we, the lay public, doesn't know about what it takes to stay in formation like that and to fly that precisely, that quickly?
Well, a lot of it is skill and lots of practice. There's no automation in any of those stunts. The pilots all work together over a period of years. They've got thousands of hours in the cockpit. So they're all top-notch pilots individually, but then they work together and drill together and train together on how to keep everybody right on your wing and keep all of those arrangements and those formations spectacularly efficient like they are.
Since you've seen these planes, I can only imagine just driving a vehicle, how easy it is to turn one way or another. Are those ones a little bit more difficult to adjust? Because I could imagine if you're trying to stay in formation and not get too close to anybody, you can't, you know, a hair turn isn't going to make a big difference, or is it?
That's a good question. I've not driven an F-16 lately, but we'll have to ask an actual pilot. But there's, like I said, there's a lot of skill and a lot of training involved there. I'm not sure it's like with the modern day cars where you've got your cruise control and your highway driving assist where it sees the lanes and things like that. I think it's pretty much all just manual. They're doing it because they're highly skilled pilots.
Wow.
Do you?
There's really not much room for error up there. You know,
Right.
they're just like that close together.
That is unbelievable.
They had what I believe was an F-22 Raptor at one of the air shows a few years ago. This is not an annual guest. So this was a rare thing, but I remember it kind of hovered up in the ground and then turned in midair without like doing the standard, that you're used to seeing. It like literally like hovered and turned. How is that even possible?
Well, that technology is called VTOL, vertical takeoff and landing. So certain new generation, 5th generation fighters will have that technology built in. So the jet propulsion can be directed to different vectors. So when it wants to take off straight from the ground, it points the jet wash straight down, so it can basically hover up, if you will, or take off from a very short runway, for example. So they can direct that thrust just using basically the vents on the ends of the jet. So they can use that to all kinds of different advantages, like in an air show, going straight up and then going forward in a moment's notice.
Wow.
It's not
Looks like a
our old
spaceship.
It's not like our old 727 where it took a good 3,500 feet on a runway to really take off.
So I'm reading here that barnstorming planes doing tricks are becoming popular. What is this might be a silly question. What is a barnstorming plane?
Barnstorming was a trend that was exemplified like 100 years ago during the first air shows. So one of
Okay.
our artifacts that we have at the Griffin Museum of Science and Industry is the Curtiss Jenny, which was famous because it's on a postage stamp as well, going upside down. So it's this biplane, double wing or old-fashioned airplane from the teens and 20s. So after World War I, there were a lot of veteran pilots who were, well-trained, had airplanes, but they didn't have a war to fight anymore. So they decided to start barnstorming around the country. So they'd go from town to town and do tricks. This is a lot of people's first experience of ever seeing an airplane in flight all around the country.
No
Oh, wow.
So
way.
they would land in some farmer's field and take off, give people rides for a nickel or 50 cents or whatever, and do crazy things. They would do loops, rolls. They had wing walkers, actual
No way.
performers, stunt
Wow.
performers who would climb out of the cockpit when the plane's in the air, and then they'd walk on the wing. They'd hang on with one hand. They could play tennis from one plane to another.
Mid-flight?
Yeah,
Mid-flight?
mid-flight. They did really.
What are the physics there? You hit a tennis ball and it's just part of the
don't know
local
what
atmosphere of the plane?
Just hit it really hard and close.
You think you hit a tennis ball from one wing to the other, the ball would end up
You
way
have to
behind.
account for a lot of forces there. I'm not sure how long their volleys were,
Yeah.
or how long
Wow.
their careers were.
Yeah.
Right. Or
But yeah,
not.
otherwise these planes would just be collecting dust between wars. Have you ever seen the Oracle plane in action live?
I've seen it on video.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. So I don't know if that's a biplane, but it can do anything. I mean, literally, it looks like it's tying itself in a knot. You mentioned the fuel that it takes to kind of operate some of this force. Can you tell us more about that?
The fuel and the forces, the fuel, it depends on what kind of plane and what kind of engine you've got, whether it's a propeller biplane or a turbojet, different kinds of fuel based on their energy density and all the performance characteristics of operating that engine. So each one has its own type of fuel. But the physics are kind of similar between an old-fashioned Curtiss Jenny and an F-35. The performance is different, but you're still dealing with lift, you're dealing with the mass or weight of the plane, you're dealing with the thrust that propels it through the air, and then you're dealing with drag, which is the wind blowing against it that's trying to slow it down. So all those forces, the pilot and the engineer manage all of these different forces to help the plane do what it wants to do. So for example, the Oracle plane, that's a high performance propeller driven plane. So that's a really good connection, because high performance isn't just dedicated to these high-tech jet fighters. You can take a sports plane that runs on a propeller and do just as impressive things. Not quite as at the Mach 3
Yeah.
speeds,
Yeah.
but you can have a lot of fun with anything that's got wings.
Okay, John, speaking of fun with anything that has wings, this is going to be a silly question again, but just where my brain goes. Commercial airlines, can these planes, what would happen if the wind got that plane on its side? Could it flip over? would it be able to flip over? Just if you're in the airplane, you're like, well, what would happen if we hit some crazy turbulence and this plane goes literally sideways?
What could possibly go wrong?
Could
Well, luckily the commercial airplanes are designed with a super wide envelope of safety, like a gigantic margin of safety. So any turbulence that's going to hit, you know, your airline flight to Cincinnati or whatever, any turbulence, that plane's going to structurally be able to take it. They test and they engineer to forces that are way over and above than any turbulence. You definitely want to have your seatbelt on, in case of any turbulence, because you know you want to stay in your seat rather than flying around or having a zero-G experience on board.
Yeah,
so
that would be no fun.
No, it will not flip over. And
it's not going to flip over, and their avionics and the pilot's training are designed with a margin of error as well. So any kind of wind shear or anything like that, they can basically handle it.
Okay.
Can you, John, tell us about any exhibits at the museum that let people experience what it's like to fly or learn more about how flight works?
Absolutely. We've got our exhibit called Take Flight, and that's the one with the Boeing 727 in it on our main balcony. It's got, as I said, a full-scale Boeing 727 that landed in Chicago for its last flight in 1994, and we brought it into the museum. Now you can board the plane, sit on it. There are interactive exhibits on board that show you how airplanes fly, how the plane works, what are all the different systems, what happens to your body during a flight. Like you might want to, it's good to drink water for a long flight because you tend to get dehydrated, and all kinds of tips and tricks for dealing with jet lag. And then you can also look inside the engine of the 727 and discover it's an animated cutaway model of this jet engine. So you can see exactly where the air comes in, where the fuel burns, where the pressure goes in and out, and how it pushes the plane forward. So it's
fascinating.
It's a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun working on it.
I'm overdue for a trip to Griffin MSI. John Llewellyn, thank you so much, sir. Fascinating stuff. Enjoy. Are you going to go to the air show this weekend?
Yeah,
you think you're going to make
definitely.
All right, for sure. Thank you so much for being here.